Discover the profound message within each new story. Be sure to watch the video until the very end for an exciting twist in the story, as the second part unravels with captivating intrigue, leaving an indelible impression on your mind. Missing out on the conclusion would mean forfeiting the valuable moral that the story imparts. Now the story, Lost Memories, Confronting Fear on the River, a tale of hope and redemption. As the raft made its way across the wide river, the man on board, Jack Lawson, felt an uneasy sensation in the pit of his stomach. He looked down into the murky waters of the Phillips and couldn't find his reflection. The surface was coated with a thick layer of green algae, making it impossible to see his face clearly. The paddles pushed through the water, creating small disturbances in the tension that seemed to amplify his anxiety. Jack's heart raced, and he could feel the sweat forming on his forehead, even though the air around him was cool. He sat back down on the raft and nervously rubbed his hands over the life vest that was too tight around his chest. The vest felt constricting, suffocating, as if it was a reminder of the very fear he was trying to escape. Could it really hold him up if something went wrong? His mind raced with doubts and worries, but he tried to push them aside. He closed his eyes and attempted to remember his name. Jack. Jack. That was all he could recall. He knew his last name sounded like Lawson, but his first name remained elusive, like a word just out of reach. He felt a twinge of frustration at his own forgetfulness, but the harder he tried to remember, the more the memory slipped away. All his life, Jack had stayed ahead of his greatest fear, water. He had always lived far away from any large bodies of water, finding comfort in the safety of dry land. However, in recent years, the world had changed dramatically. Lakes had dried up, the ocean had risen and receded, and coral reefs had become nothing more than distant memories buried under layers of silt. Water, once an assurance, had turned into a scarce commodity, and Jack had found some solace in the fact that he could avoid confronting his fear. But life has a way of catching up with our deepest fears, and fate has a twisted sense of humor. Jack had never revealed his fear of drowning to anyone, not even to his beloved wife, Emily. He couldn't bear the thought of burdening her with his weakness. However, when he found her unconscious in the bathtub one evening, he couldn't help but feel that his fear was finally catching up with him. The water that he had tried so hard to avoid was now taunting him, threatening to take away the person he loved most. His mind filled with memories of Emily's warm smile, her gentle touch, and the way she would wake him up in the morning with a soft tap on the shoulder, urging him to start the day. Tears welled up in his eyes as he thought of her lying unconscious in that bathtub. He wished he could have been there to save her, but he felt helpless, just as he did now on this raft. After Emily's accident, Jack had taken to his bed, drowning in grief and guilt. For 7 nights, he had slept fitfully, his mind tormented by the memories of their life together. Slowly, as grief consumed him, his memory began to deteriorate. Phone numbers, addresses, and even the names of his children slipped away, leaving him feeling lost and adrift. Now, as he sat on the raft surrounded by strangers, his memory continued to fail him. He couldn't remember his children's names, and even his own name seemed to be slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. Panic set in, and he tried to speak, to ask for help, but his voice failed him. He was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or communicate. The van's sudden stop pulled him back to the present, and he felt the hands of the strangers grabbing him by the arms. They rushed him out of the van, carrying him on a stretcher. The air was fragrant with the promise of early spring, but Jack was too consumed by fear to appreciate it. The flowers were trying to bloom despite the short winter, just as he was trying to hold on to his memories despite the darkness creeping in. He desperately wanted to tell them that he didn't need to be rescued, that he didn't want their help, but the words wouldn't come. The van ride had left him disoriented, and he couldn't comprehend what was happening. He felt like a puppet being moved by invisible strings, forced into a reality he didn't understand. The strangers placed him on a raft, and as it started moving on the water, Jack's fear intensified. He felt claustrophobic on the crowded raft, surrounded by people he didn't know. There were too many of them, and he feared that the raft would capsize under the weight of their collective anxieties. As they paddled, Jack struggled to make sense of the chaos around him. He felt the pressure of the life vest on his chest, a constant reminder of his fear, and he wondered if he would ever escape its suffocating grasp. Suddenly, the raft hit a rough patch, and several people were thrown off the raft into the water. Jack couldn't comprehend what had just happened. It was as if they had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only ripples on the water's surface. The remaining strangers continued to paddle, seemingly unaffected by the disappearance of their companions. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, and he felt a sense of impending doom. He had to get off this raft, away from the water that terrified him so much. With all the strength he could muster, he tried to stand up, but his legs trembled, and he fell back onto the raft. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion and terror, and he desperately tried to remember his children's names, but they eluded him like elusive ghosts. The pressure around his neck returned, like a tap on the shoulder urging him to follow its lead. Jack felt an inexplicable force guiding him, and he found himself crawling towards a sitting rock on the riverbank. The rock felt solid and reassuring beneath his hands, a sanctuary amidst the chaos. He sat on the rock, catching his breath, and looked out at the river. It seemed to have found its course again, just like Jack had found his way back to solid ground. He thought of Emily, and her name echoed in his mind like a cherished memory. Emily, he whispered, a mix of grief and gratitude in his voice. He knew he would remember his name soon, just as he would remember the names of his children. But for now, he allowed himself to feel the weight of his grief and the relief of surviving the ordeal. In the distance, sirens wailed, and Jack knew that rescue was on its way. He had survived the river, confronted his fear, and found a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. As he waited for help to arrive, he knew that life would never be the same again. The memories he had lost would eventually return, and he would continue to navigate the uncertain waters of life, buoyed by the love and strength of the woman he would never forget, Emily. And perhaps, in time, Jack would learn to embrace water not as his greatest fear but as a symbol of life's ebb and flow, a reminder of the strength that lay within him, waiting to be discovered. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel and join us on our journey through the world of stories. Don't forget to click the bell icon for the latest video updates. Check out the video description for the complete playlist. Thank you for watching.